school teachers, whether it's somebody that's going to go for a job interview, just start right out and say, I'm a person who stutters sometimes, so bear with me, I can do the job. Or bear with me, I know the answers to this question and I'm going to get them out.
Well, let's kind of just give the background and the real kind of nitty-gritty information. Let's talk about what stuttering is exactly. I think people have a good idea of what it is, but what it is exactly and what causes it.
Well, you know it when you hear it. And of course, it's anything that will interrupt the flow of speech, such as repetitions, like I just did, prolongation, so when the word is stretched out like that, or a complete block of sound. Sometimes when people have been stuttering for a long time, you will see facial contortions. For some reason, once or twice, that has helped them get the word out, and then it becomes just kind of an attachment to it. It's not really part of the stuttering, but they are just struggling really hard to get that word out. What causes it? We do know that there is a genetic component. It's in my family. My dad stuttered. My uncle stuttered. I have first cousins who stutter. We know that does play a role. We know it's got a neurological component to it. When you think about everything we do has a neurological component,
right.
Whether it's shooting a basketball, whether it's riding a bicycle, or whether it's talking. And if you think about talking for a minute, which we don't really stop to think much about it, it's the most complex thing we do. It takes 45,000 neuromuscular events per second to say a word. So you're not only speaking, but you're thinking about what you're going to say. You're listening to what's being said to you. It's wildly complex. So I think the real miracle is that we can talk at all. So anything that is a little bit disruptive, and I like to use the example of walking the plank. If you see a plank on the ground and somebody says, do you walk that plank? Can you balance? Can you walk on that plank? And they say, sure, I can walk that plank, especially if it's a foot wide. You won't have any trouble. But if they lift that plank in the air 6 feet and they say it's the same plank and you know how to walk, you never have any trouble walking, just walk that plank, it's 5 feet in the air, you might say, oh, I can't do that. And so when you think about stuttering, because people always ask, why does somebody stutter in one situation, not in the other? It's kind of like walking the plank. If we lift that plank up in the air and you can't walk it, does that mean you don't have the muscles? You don't have any leg muscles? You don't have what it takes to walk? No, but with people who stutter, their neurological makeup may break down a little bit more easily than someone else. So if they're under stress, and the teacher says, answer that right away. Hurry up, I want you to answer that question. Or even if their parents say, what'd you have for lunch today? What'd you have for lunch? Instead of saying something like, I wonder what you had for lunch today. So that communicative pressure that we might put on a person who stutters may cause that person to stutter. So what I'm saying is stress doesn't cause the stuttering, but it may aggravate it in a person who's already a little bit fragile.
And that's really a good point. And we talked off the air a little bit, and I want to bring this example up because it can go down to as simple as ordering a cup of coffee. It's a situation where stress exacerbates almost every situation. But for the stutterer, if they're in a situation where they can't properly communicate, a lot of times what the individual does is change what their approach is, whether it's ordering a cup of coffee to changing that to another drink that's easier to say. How is this dynamic? Like, how does this dynamic get dealt with on a daily basis for these people? It sounds so difficult.
Well, so many of them are walking dictionaries, because they're always looking for substitute words, and it just becomes exhausting. And I think often that's a turning point for many people. They get tired of substituting words. For example, if you can't say coffee and you order tea instead, but you really want coffee, at some point you may get to the point where you say, you know what, I'm going to go to speech therapy. I'm going to learn how to ease into that word coffee and say it in a way that doesn't trigger a stutter. And, I'm obviously a big proponent of going to speech therapy. It's like having a coach for shooting basketballs. You may be really good at shooting baskets if you do it by yourself in the backyard, but if you've got a coach standing next to you that says, well, you're tensing up that shoulder a little bit, or I don't like what you're doing with your elbow, I think you can get it right. So that speech therapist is there to help coach you. You're the one going to have to do the work if you're a person who stutters. You're going to have to work on it harder than most people, and it doesn't seem fair that you may have to work a little bit harder to be a good speaker. But I always say, look at James Earl Jones, look at Winston Churchill. You can become a speaker that's extraordinary, not just regular, but you can really go above and beyond a public speaker and become a really good communicator. And so that's a real challenge, but it's a challenge that's worth making, worth working on.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple famous celebrities that, well, Winston Churchill wasn't necessarily a celebrity, but you mentioned some famous people that stutter, and we're going to talk about them in a second because I think that really makes it relatable to people that are suffering from it. But I want to move into right now, I think I know the answer to this question, but is there a cure for stuttering?
Well, there isn't a cure, unless we're talking about little kids, that literally do, quotes, outgrow it. And on our website, stutteringhelp.org, that's HELP.org, there are some films that parents can watch of how to interact with a child that may be stuttering and, ways to ease their learning of speech so that they don't have a chronic stuttering problem. In terms of adults, no, there's not a cure. If you go on the internet, of course, you're going to find a whole bunch of cures for anything.
Right.
But there's certainly ways to become a fluent speaker.
Well, you're talking about treatment because, look, there's no cure, but we've got really advancements in the treatment of stuttering, and you talked a little bit about that, but look, we live here in the New Jersey area. We're right outside of Philadelphia and South Jersey, and I would want to know, if I'm watching here, where can I find information about treatment locally?
Well, the Stuttering Foundation, again, at stutteringhelp.org, has a resource list of where people can find help and who the people are who specialize in stuttering. So that's an easy look, and it also gives you tips of things you can do while you're waiting. If there's a waiting list, gives you tips of things you can be doing in the meanwhile that will make a real difference.
And I'm talking to Jane Frazier, who's the president of the Stuttering Foundation. And Jane, I just want to make sure that we're not on a time crunch here. Do you have a few minutes for me, correct?
I maybe got 1 or 2 minutes. I've got something at 9:45.
Okay, no problem. I just want to talk about a couple more things, and I think that this is really important for people to know that there are now ID cards available for you if you stutter to be able to present at places like airports for police officers, teachers, basically anybody in authority that will deal with you in a stressful encounter. I think this is a great thing.
It's a great idea, and again, it's advertise the fact that you stutter. Let people know. That takes a lot of pressure off you. So you see that policeman, you're running for your flight, and you start stuttering like that, and they think, is this person on drugs or is this person hiding something? Unfortunately, sometimes that is what they think. You pull out your card that says, I'm a person who stutters. Here's some facts. Stress can make it worse. Doesn't cause it, but it can make it worse. So if you want a free card, you can download it at stutteringhelp.org again, or you can call us toll-free at 800-992-9392, or you can email us at info@stutteringhelp.org. So those are 3 ways to get a free card.
Yeah, that's really, I think it is a great thing, and we talked a second ago about some famous people who stutter. So look, you stutterers out there, you're not alone. There are people who have achieved very, very high levels of success. Maybe just run down a few names for us. I know we're running out of time here.
Well, James Earl Jones, of course, and Mel Tillis, and Carly Simon, and Johnny Damon. Baseball, since we're World Series.
That's right.
Um, um, Football players, Darren Sproles. Just lots and lots of role models out there for kids today.
Well, we're big Philadelphia Eagles fans here, and we love Darren Sproles, and I think that it's important for people to understand that you're not alone with this disease, and that as we move forward in America, we're becoming more accepting of a lot of different groups and a lot of different types of people, and stuttering needs to be included in that, because if you stutter, it does not mean that you are any less intelligent or lacking any brain power. It is legitimately a disease, and it should not be made fun of, and we need to reduce the stigma of stuttering. Jane.
Thanks so much, Mark. It's true. And yeah, in fact, I'd say that people who stutter are certainly above average intelligence. So on that parting word, I appreciate your focus on stuttering today. I want to thank you.
You are quite welcome. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me this morning, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. That was Jane Frazier. She is an international expert and the president of the Stuttering Foundation. Folks, let's break down the stigma of stuttering. Go to stutteringhelp.org, and you're going to be able to get all of the information about all the stuff that she just talked about. You know, there was even more stuff that I didn't get to because, you know, I just tend to talk too much. But we could have talked about the therapy dogs that help with stuttering